really sure why I do that, but I do. Fry. So I'll make a bunch of these. I put a layer of wax paper on the bottom of it and make it good. So these are looking great. Whoops, this guy don't want to come out. Okay. Hello there, welcome back. It's me, Martin Salama, the architect of the Warriors Life Code. Live incredibly full every day. And today I'm going to be making cornflake chicken schnitzel, or fried cutlets if you want, with cornflake crumbs on it, cornflake crumbs and cornflakes. So I'm going to make that, and also going to talk about something I talked about recently on Facebook, which is, do you suffer from what if? So we'll get into both of those things as we go along now. But let me tell you about the chicken, how I even make schnitzel. So I never used to fry schnitzel at all or anything like that. But when I got married, and one of my stepkids, his name is Moses, very picky eater, doesn't love to eat very much things. And one of the things he does eat, we used to just eat chicken nuggets, processed chicken nuggets, kosher processed chicken nuggets. And he was away in Israel for a year learning there, and he got into liking schnitzel. So, okay, great, I can make schnitzel. So I started making that for him, and when he's in town, like I said, he doesn't eat much, so he eats schnitzel. And then on the dairy side, he eats pizza, he eats cheese, pasta, stuff like that. Not spaghetti, just shorter pastas. He doesn't like the spaghetti. But that's all good. You got to work with what it is. He likes the white types of food. So I taught myself how to make schnitzel, and there's a ton of recipes online for schnitzel, chicken schnitzel with cornflakes, even on the cornflake box. On the box here, one of the boxes, it talks about, here you go, I knew it, how to make it. So I don't really use their recipes that much, but I do, I've come up with my own recipes. So what I do here is I have 3 Pyrex pie dishes that one's got flour in it, one's got 3 beaten eggs in it with some water, a couple of tablespoons of water. I'm not really sure why I do that, but I do. And then this is the cornflake crumbs. Before I put the cornflakes in, that's just the base of it. It's like breadcrumbs. Okay, and then I add a bunch of spices to it. I add about a tablespoon or so of each one. I just poured it, but it's about a half a tablespoon of black pepper. I put a little less of the black pepper than anything else. Onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, smoked paprika, and salt. And this all came from trial and error and stuff like that. So this is my version of chicken cutlets, chicken schnitzel. And actually, I even remember the first time I ever had schnitzel. I was a kid, I was 11 years old, and it's even a little bit of a tie-in, I didn't realize it until I started telling the story now, to what I'm going to talk about with the what ifs. So I was 11 years old, and my family went to Israel for the summer. And I think it was a little over a year after my brother passed away. That was 1974. We went to Israel. He passed away in 1973, which is 50 years ago right now this time. And I think my father wanted us to get away from the typical things that we were going through. My parents wanted to do that. So we went to Israel. My mom, my sisters, my single sisters, my sister Linda was married already. So Nancy, Diane, and Vivian. My cousin Marilyn and me, 11-year-old little pisha me. And we went to Israel, and we stayed in this hotel that also had apartments in it. My father had a friend who let him use his apartment, and then there was a hotel downstairs as well. And I think he did that because he wanted us to get away from everything that was going on, and just from the whole thing of what happened with my son, my brother, and just work on that. It was a year plus later, but I could be wrong. But while I was there was a couple in the hotel. Their name was Pat and Mickey Carey. Mickey Carey, a few years later, taught me how to read my bar mitzvah part. He taught many, many boys how to read their bar mitzvah part. He was really a wonderful man in so many ways. I never had children. And one Friday afternoon, Pat said to me, come with me, we're going to go to the market and I'm going to get schnitzel. I said, what schnitzel? And he showed me, and I loved it. It's fantastic. But anyway, so I'm also going to talk about what if. And the reason I thought about it just now is because it goes back to when my brother passed away. So Michael, as you might have heard in past episodes, was killed by a school bus when he was 5 years old. I was 10. And that set me on a path for many years of being a people pleaser. I don't want to go into that whole part of it. But a few weeks ago, my mom came out of the hospital, and it was time for her to not live in the house she was living anymore. So she moved in with one of my sisters, my sister Diane. And we had to clean out her house. And I took some of the things. I took the picture of my grandpa, my jiddo, who I never met, who was a big rabbi in our community. And I also took this school picture of my brother Michael. You know, when you go to school and they take your picture. So my mother kept that by her bedside for the last 50 years. So I took it with me. Her memory's not so there anymore, so unfortunately she won't miss it. So I took it, and I have it now with me. So when I showed it to Sarita, my wife, she said, I wonder what he would look like now. Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. I never thought about that. I said it to one of my sisters, and she said, oh my God, he looked just like Daddy. He would definitely look like Daddy. And then she said, you know, I wonder what his life would be like. And I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I've been down that rabbit hole too often. That what if rabbit hole of what if this happens, what if that happens? And it's not a good place to be. And, you know, I'll get into it a little bit more, but just I've been able to turn it around, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a few minutes. But let's get into a little bit. I'll show you how I do a couple of these chickens, these chicken cutlets. And I like to get ultra thin chicken cutlets. These are ultra thin, these are thin. I bought some earlier in the week, so I'm just going to use what I have left. Thin minimum. If you get a thick one, slice it in the middle like butterfly it and cut it apart and use that. So that's a good idea. But so what I'm going to do is, first thing is I'm going to take some of this corn flakes, and I'm going to add it to the crumbs. Okay? And you're going to have to do this a couple of times, add it as you go along. So I'm not going to do it all now. I'm just going to show you one or two of them. Then I'll come back before I fry them, so on and so forth. But, so I take one of these guys. Okay? I use a lot of forks and spoons here. And I dredge it in the flour. And I take it, I put it in the egg. The egg acts as a binder. Now, for a while, I wasn't using the flour part of it. And then my daughter Claire said to me, Dad, the way you get the corn flakes to stick onto the egg, onto the chicken after you do it, because sometimes they would be falling off, and they might this time too, is use some go back to using flour. I was like, okay, I'll try it, and it's been working, so I figured I'll do it. So that's one. You see what I did here? I'll do it again. I take this, I dump it in here for a minute. I like to wear gloves. You know I do. Okay, then we'll take it here, take the fork, and flip it over. And get it all dredged, and then pick it up and let the excess egg come off. Then you dump it in here, and you make sure you get cornflake crumbs and cornflakes onto it. And then we'll put it on the table, on the tray. Get ready to fry. So I'll make a bunch of these. I put a layer of wax paper on the bottom of it, and this way it doesn't stick to the pan or whatever. And then I'll show you some more later when I go along. But the idea is I'll bread them all. I'll make them all with the way it should look. If I need more, I'll put another layer of wax paper on top, and then I'll do it. And I'll come back and I'll continue. And we'll go further into the whole what if. Hi, I'm back with after I've breaded all of the schnitzel. I'm putting on a new pair of gloves, and I started heating up the oil. What I do is I take a pan, and I put about a quarter of an inch to a half an inch of oil on the bottom. I use canola oil, and I wait until it's about 325 to 350 degrees, and then I'll start frying them, which is in about another 30 seconds or so. So we're talking about what if. So it was very easy for me to say, what if my brother lived? What would my life have been? And what good would that have done? So instead, recently I thought about it, and I thought about the impact that a 5-year-old boy made on my family on our community and literally on the world. I'll tell you how. So when my brother passed away, my mother was distraught for a long time, and someone came to her and said, there are a couple of other women who've lost children. Why don't the three of you get together and we'll get you a counselor and you can start working through that stuff. And they did, and they eventually built a bereavement group in our community for mothers who lost children. And what would happen is in the Jewish community, when someone passes away, you have a week of what's called Shiva. You literally sit almost on the floor, and people make condolence calls for 1 week. And so what would happen is my mother would go to visit these women who lost children and tell them something that nobody else could tell them unless they felt it. They went through it. I know how you feel. And she started this bereavement group. Over the year, and they would get together and say, come in when you're ready, and we'll be here for you to support you. And over the years, many women have come to me and said, your mother saved my life. At my lowest point, she came in. So that came as a result of my brother. Okay, so I'm just going to go back onto here for a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fry these for about 1.5 minutes on each side. Okay? Oops, we lost some of that. We'll put that back on top. And don't crowd the pot. And I'll only do this one now to show you. So it's about 1.5 minutes. So that's one example. Another example is my cousin, who at the time was just about to go into college. Years later, 20 years later, he told me, Martin, I was always going to be a doctor, but when what happened to your brother, I became a pediatric neurologist. I was like, wow. He goes, I did that because I know that your brother suffered neurological damage, and I wanted to make sure that he is a foremost doctor in New Jersey and the country on pediatric neurology. My father started, a few years later, my grandmother passed away after a stroke in a nursing home. He went to the synagogue that we were involved in. He said, guys, there's a couple of buildings for sale. Let's turn them into senior citizen apartments with HUD funding and all that. So he started that. And then 30 years later, while I was building my synagogue, it was about a year into it, it's about 1 minute now. I'm going to wait another 30 seconds and then I'm going to flip them. I went to my dad. I said, Dad, we're getting close to building. We're going to start buying a synagogue now, a house to start praying in, because we were going house to house for a year. He said, Martin, I'll give you $50,000 if you name the synagogue after your brother Michael. So it became Sharei Tefillah B'nai Moshe, the gates of prayer, children of Moshe. Moshe is my brother's Hebrew name. It's Moses in English. So now it's been about 1.5 minutes. I'm going to flip these over, and then we'll do it another 1.5 minutes on that side. Sometimes I end up throwing a little bit of the Corn Flakes in there because the guys like a lot of the Corn Flakes. And then I'll take a slotted spoon and put them on top. I'll show you that after. So there's an incident of what my dad did. My sister, one of my sisters, two of my sisters were part of an organization they started called Bikor Cholim, visiting the sick, but then it grew into so much more. It's one of the greatest organizations in our Jewish community here in Brooklyn and all over the world, but ours is called the Sephardic Bikor Cholim. A few years ago, my sister started to understand when she was watching my father and her father-in-law going through the hospital that somebody had to understand what to do in the hospital, be an advocate to ask the right questions. So she started doing that for my father and her father-in-law started, and she started doing that more and more. She started an organization, finding the people, the right doctors for the people. And she did that. And now she started her own cancer center for support from people going through cancer. Not medically, but everything else, all the support you need, not just for them, for their family. It's called the Morris Franco Cancer Center. Got about another 10, 15 seconds, and I'm going to take these out. And then I'll fry the rest of them without you. That's just a couple of things. And I'll come back and I'll wrap it up. My point is that you could look at the negatives, or you could try to find some silver linings in your life on how you can change whatever happened to you, whatever it is in your life that's going on, and make it good. So these are looking great. Whoops, this guy don't want to come out. Okay, I'll show you what they look like. So what I do is I put them on a baking tray. You see, I have like a grate here, like they use it for cooling cookies, and then I put paper towel to dry up some of the oil, the excess oil, and I'll flip them a little bit. And I'm gonna do the rest of them. But think about what I'm telling you about. Think about what I've seen in your life and what the effects they've had. I'll come back, I'll show you what the rest of them look like, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, welcome back. So the The chicken schnitzel is all done. Here it is. It looks great. I got a lot of the cornflake crumbs to stay on top. That was nice. The cornflakes, I should say. I mashed them up a little bit when I put them in there. By the way, the oil was at medium-high heat. I'll have that all in the recipe below. So did you think about what I was thinking about when I was talking about? I know it's only a few seconds, but it's about recognizing. I'm not saying don't mourn. Of course mourn if they have a loss like I had. And for me, the mourning went for 40 plus years with me thinking I was a people pleaser, thinking I needed to take care of everybody to make up for the loss of my brother. Now I look at it when someone says my name. It used to be when someone said my brother's name, I should say. I would shudder. Oh my God, and think of all those things. It was like PTSD. A day doesn't go by that I don't think about brother or the story. It's ingrained in my mind. But then as I went through life coaching and became more self-aware, I recognized, you know what? It's God telling me Michael's with me. He's by my side. He's helping me. It's Michael telling me he's with me. So take that with you. Think about it. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear what you think about what I'm talking about here. Tell me about some stories for you where you turned what if into something of impact for the little woman here. Elliot, you're going to say something about that, I know. But, don't forget, go to connectwithmartin.com, get Warrior to Warrior. I don't talk about specifically what if in there, but it's all built into everything. And it's all about changing your mindset from lack to abundance, from self-conscious to self-aware, from moving forward with whatever's going on in your life. I hope you've enjoyed this. Enjoy your day. By the way, it's Friday. That's why you see the challah that my wife has made, Sarita's made. We're actually going to her sister for dinner tonight, and we're going to take the schnitzel with us there. And I'll clean up everything here before we go. It's always a clean kitchen for me. And enjoy life. Shabbat Shalom. And don't forget, live incredibly full every day.